Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the most powerful ideas out there, the American dream. But we're going to cut through all the noise and the slogans to see what the actual data tells us about where it came from and where it's going. We're going to start with this famous line from The Great Gatsby because it really gets to the heart of it. The American dream is so tied up in this idea of the past. But what we're going to ask is, can that past really be repeated? And maybe, just maybe, should it be? So this is the big question, right? And to answer it, we're not just going to go on feelings. We're going to follow the numbers, the hard data, through the decades and see how this promise of a better, richer life has actually held up. Okay, so before we can check its pulse, we've got to define our terms. What exactly is the American dream? Because as you're about to see, that answer has been a real moving target. This is probably what pops into your head, right? It's that classic idea of a ladder of opportunity. The belief that no matter who you are, if you just work hard enough, you can climb from rags to riches, or at the very least, build a comfortable, stable life for yourself. But the original idea, totally different. Thomas Jefferson's vision wasn't really about getting rich at all. It was all about self-sufficiency. He imagined this nation of independent farmers who didn't have to rely on anyone else. The goal was independence, not a bigger bank account. All right, let's jump forward in time. We're going to the era that most people think of as the absolute golden age of the American dream, that post-World War II boom. This is where our modern idea of the dream really took shape. And the data from this time, it's incredible. The economy was on fire, and that wealth was spread around pretty evenly. A single income from a factory job could actually support a whole family, buy a house. And here's the kicker. Incomes for everyone, the poor, the middle class, the rich, they all grew at almost the exact same rate. When the economic pie got bigger, everyone got a proportionally bigger slice. But here's the massive catch to that whole Golden Age story. This version of the American dream was, for the most part, reserved for white men. You had federal housing policies and discriminatory practices, like redlining, that systematically locked Black Americans and other minorities out of the very things that built the white middle class. So yeah, the dream was real, but only for some. And then, around 1980, the story just takes this incredibly sharp turn. The data shows this fundamental shift in the American economy. It's like the rules of the game were completely rewritten. So a whole bunch of things started to change. How taxes worked, a ton of financial deregulation, and the power of labor unions started to decline. And look, these were just small tweaks. They fundamentally changed who was benefiting from all the economic growth, and the effects for everyday Americans were profound. For decades, the deal was simple. When American workers got more productive, they got paid more. You could plot it on a graph, and the two lines just moved up together. Then, around 1980, those lines split. Productivity kept soaring up, but the wages for a typical worker just went flat. And at the exact same time, the incomes for the top 1% started to take off like a rocket. So the crucial point here is that the prosperity didn't just vanish. It was redirected, and nothing shows this more clearly than CEO pay. What used to be a ratio of about 26-1 in the 70s, well, it exploded to nearly 400-1. The economy was still growing, but the rewards were being handed out very, very differently. And this great divergence, as they call it, created this really weird paradox that defines the American dream today. A world where our expectations got supersized, but our paychecks didn't. So on the one hand, our whole culture of success just exploded. Everything got bigger. Our ambitions, our portion sizes. The simple little 6.5-ounce Coke bottle, that symbol of post-war contentment, it got replaced by the 64-ounce double gulp. Our houses tell the exact same story. Even as the average American family was actually getting smaller, the size of the average new house more than doubled. The very definition of what a good life looks like was inflating, right along with our homes. And this is where those supersized dreams slam right into economic reality. For over a decade, between 1997 and 2010, the median household income, when you adjust for inflation, didn't grow at all. It was completely flat. So think about that. The dream got bigger, but the average family's ability to pay for it didn't. And this is the direct result. That core promise of the dream, that your kids will have it better than you, it just started to evaporate. In the 1950s, it was practically a guarantee. But for kids born in the 1980s, it became a coin toss. The rungs on that economic ladder have been pulled further and further apart, and that climb is just harder than it has ever been. So, where does all of this leave us? Well, it brings us to one final and I think really critical question about the future of the American dream itself. Based on all this data, a lot of academic research now argues that for the average person, the dream of climbing that economic ladder is, to put it bluntly, a myth. The belief in the dream is still incredibly powerful, but the economic evidence to back it up is just faded away. And when you zoom out and you compare the US to other countries, the picture gets even clearer. This self-proclaimed land of opportunity actually has less economic mobility than places like Germany, Australia, and Japan. Statistically speaking, it is harder to rise above the economic class you were born into in America than in many other developed nations. So, at the end of the day, the question isn't just, is the American dream dead? It's whether the version of the dream we've all inherited, the one that's all about more and more stuff, is even the right one anymore. If the data shows that dream is out of reach for most people, well, maybe it's time to ask if we need a new one. What would that even look like? That's the question all this data leaves us with.